Hello and welcome to the Rejuvenate podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy Hawks. And today, lovely listeners, I am honored to be with a true British sporting icon, Olympic medalist, world champion, and one of the most resilient human beings you will ever hear from. Fatima Whitbread. And so, Fatima, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I know we've seen each other a bit around in the past, and I've learned a little bit about your story as I've been doing some research with you, and I'm really honored and thrilled to have you joining me today.
I'm delighted to be here with you and sharing this platform, and let's hope we entertain those listeners because that's the most important thing, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we'll dive right on in. Your childhood story, as I've been listening and getting to know a little bit more about you, is very, very, very powerful. When you look back, or when you think about it, how do you think it's helped shape your strength and your resilience as who you are today?
Well, I don't think I would be the person I am had I not have experienced children care system. When I say that, it's definitely not defined who I have become, but those experiences have certainly helped to shape the strength within me. And obviously, when you go from A to B over a period of 14 years, I mean, I was abandoned as a baby, and some would say left to die. A neighbour heard a baby crying and hadn't seen anybody coming or going in a couple of days. So she called the police, who banged the door down, rescued the baby, which was myself. And then I was made a ward of court and spent the next 7 months in hospital. And while I was recovering, they made me a ward of court. And then I ended up in the care system for the next 14 years of my life. Now, during that 14 years, most of my first 14 years was like a lot of children in the care system, was blighted with physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. So when you look at the whole picture of my childhood, then it was one of adversity, but it also created an inner strength within me and also made me very resilient. And I often say that these children, those that are in the care system, are there through no fault of their own. But one thing you can be assured, it's they should be honoured for their resilience, because they have to face abandonment, neglect, and emotional turmoil from a very young age, and like I did. And at the end of the day, you have to learn to survive, and if there is a possibility of thriving into the mixed of that, then so be it. I was very, very fortunate, to be honest, because I actually did meet a very important person in my life in the name of Auntie Ray, who became my bright shining star. And if I can carry on, here's my book called My Bright Shining Star, and it's about a young Fatima in the care system. And my bright shining star was my Auntie Ray. This is all about my journey in the care system. For a lot of young people today, they don't really know that what foster care is all about, and they don't believe that all children. They think that all children have got families, but not all children have families. So this book is trying to reach a lot of people, educate young people, and also encourage families to think about opening their home and their heart to fostering young children in the care system. So it's a brilliant book, actually. It's lovely illustrations, is Auntie Ray, and there's a lot to be said within the book about children in the care system and how they go through the care system and how they find, hopefully, foster parents, of which I found when I was at the age of 14 in the Whitbreads, through sport, actually. Through sport. Sport was my saviour.
No, that's beautiful. Just because you've brought up the book, where can people go find that book if they like to purchase it?
So this book, My Bright Shining Star, you can purchase this book on Amazon, or you can go to Waterstones and order it as well. It's a beautiful book, well illustrated by Rianne Wright. And we also, currently, we're doing a special Christmas edition of calendars. So there's a lovely calendar, My Bright Shining Star calendar, of the illustrations from the book in the calendar itself. And cards, Christmas
Oh, those are
cards. I
lovely.
mean, these are beautiful Christmas cards. Again, different illustrations of a young Fatima. It's all proceeds go to the Fatima's UK campaign to help us make a difference to these young people's lives and also bring fundamental change to the care system. So you can go on my website, fatimascampaign.com, support us, and also you'll find the link to buy these cards and calendars there too. So, and if you work within Instagram or Threads or Twitter, TikTok, these are all my platforms. You'll find me there. You'll find all the information you want in my bio as well. So you should be able to purchase these wonderful items and play your part in help bringing fundamental change for these young people.
Beautiful, beautiful. Absolutely so lovely, listeners. You know where to go for your Christmas cards this year and your calendars for 2026. Fatima, you mentioned Auntie Ray there. I wanted to ask, is she still around? Do you still get to see her? And also, then, two, you mentioned she was really important in your bright, shining star in your life. Were there any others along your journey that helped you support you to lift you up out of that care system and give you love along the way?
Yeah, I mean, it's important for your listeners to perhaps understand Auntie Ray was like a mum to us children. She just understood us, she got us, and she held us emotionally. And we felt safe with Auntie Ray. I always used to call her the tickle monster, to be honest. Auntie Ray was, on duty. 42-hour lady, and when I knew she was coming on duty, I would always hide under the bed covers and I wouldn't move until Auntie Ray tickled me, and that's when I felt my day had started. She just understood us and got us. And with regard to having other role models, I personally, at the age of 11, it was constantly being told to me by the house parents that you'll never amount to anything, which was shocking, really, because um, if you tell somebody enough, then they start to believe the narrative, right? But I just refused to do that. In the 60s and 70s, London was all about marijuana and prostitution, and care leavers age then for young people was 16. And I was absolutely feared for what would happen to me, because being told that I would end up on the streets in a junkie was just not an option for me. And so at 11 years old, I remember watching the Munich Olympics on the TV, and I saw Mary Peters win the pentathlon. And that's when I started to think, here's something I can be good at. I loved my sport. Sport was my savior when I was in the care system. And that was the way I'd express myself. And I learned a huge amount about life skills, how to conduct myself, how to look after time management and dealing with people. And these were transferable into adulthood, these life skills. And this is one of the things that we, through Fatima's UK campaign, do with our young people, the Power of Sports, Arts and Technology programs. And in April just this year, we staged the first inaugural summit, which was quite an historic moment of bringing the four nations together for the very first time. We had a 2-day summit harnessing the power of one voice, which brought representatives from right across the care system, from housing, homelessness, county lines, probation, education, mental health. It was a wonderful opportunity to try and eradicate silos, which most of them work in, which wasn't serving the care system properly, further setting our young people up for failure and damage. And of course, the care system being broken like that, it made sense to us. We should bring that collaboration and partnership together, join up the dots of that thinking of how we can improve the life uh, outcomes of these young children through shared good practice and knowledge. Now, it was an amazing success. We now have on our website for anybody that's interested all the videos of the breakout rooms and the interviews and our young people there talking, which you can go and look on the website, fatimascampaign.com. But also we have now a directorate which has never been in existence of who's who in the care system, which can connect people to start to work together and build that fundamental change in what we're looking to do, in allowing our young people to be able to live that independent, sustainable life in hope that one day they'll break that cycle and obviously set for us as Fatima's UK campaign. It's all about bringing that change from a child that I was in the care system to becoming a world champion and coming all the way back round into the care system again. And through my determination, using my lived experience, my platform, my Olympic platform, now bringing fundamental change to that care system for future generations. Because you've got to think about this. The government can't plug every hole. It's all our responsibility. Society has a role to play. Society meaning you and I and everybody. And that really is a question of saying to everybody, ask yourself, what more can you do to help? What more can you do in your own community to help make that change? There's always something we can do, and we all need to realize that we have that moral and ethical responsibility to leave something in the world of, a legacy of some sort to make that positive change to help good causes.
No, absolutely. You touched on a few things there that I want to ask you about, especially growing up in care and having that moment where you watched the Munich Olympics and you saw Mary Peters and being in care and how sport was your savior, and then the decision of when you were leaving care where you said the age was 16, which, my God, that is so young. You're babies then. Of that it was London was just the prostitutes and marijuana, and you said that's not me. Where do you think, like, a couple of things, where do you think the determination for you to go, where do you think that determination in you came from, and how was it that sports really helped get you there?
I was very fortunate that I had a good role model. Role models are really important to young people growing up, and just one person can change a child's life. And Auntie Ray, I mean, I used to remember when Auntie Ray was coming on duty, I'd run upstairs, I'd look out the port window on the staircase, and I'd think, where does she live? And I'd hear her clip-clopping up and down the street. And I saw she lives at that end house there. And I was only 10 at the time. And I went out and I picked all these flowers, daffodils from everybody's gardens. Naughty girl. And then I went down to Auntie Ray's and I hid them behind my back, knocked on the door. And when she opened it, I presented the flowers and I said, will you be my mummy? And Auntie Ray said, Fat, she said, now look, she said, come round the back, let's talk about this. And I automatically thought, I'm going to be in trouble now for picking the flowers. But here's the two lessons that I learned that will stay with me forever. Auntie Ray said, sit down, Fats, let's have a cup of tea and a biscuit. I still love a cup of tea and a biscuit to this day. She said, Fat, she said, I can't just be your mum. She said, I've got to be mum to all those children. She said, but here's the thing. She said, I can't always be there and you are. She said, so why don't you be there, mum, when I'm not there? And I started to think about this and I thought, that's not a bad idea. And of course, at 10 years old, I made myself quite unpopular because I called out most of all the unjust, which were very many, which at that time in the 60s, I mean, the house parents were very young, had no experience, and obviously it was just a job to them. But it didn't serve and fulfill our children's emotional needs. And I used to play with the kids trampolining on the beds, pillow fights. I used to draw matchstick men on the steamed up windows in the morning. If they were having nightmares at night time, it would be in my bedroom. So I would wake them up and they would be crying for mummy, or I would read them or talk make up a story to get them back to sleep, help them change the beds when they were wet. And we also had a baby in the room, of which the house parents couldn't hear the baby crying because they had thick fire doors. So I'd often have to take the baby to bed with me. And what this did for me, and also, it not only gave me a sense of purpose, but in fulfilling those children's emotional needs, in giving, it you receive. It fulfilled mine too. So I learned that was one really important lesson: in giving, you receive. The second was that it swiveled the lens for me. A lot of young people, and we all tend to do it when we're feeling traumatized, and kids today in the care system, by the time they're 14, 27% of them are traumatized and suffering with mental health issues. And basically that's because they don't have what we call unconditional love. They don't have that in their life. Swiveling that lens, because you can get trapped up here, and ask the question of yourself: why am I stuck here in this place, and what in this dark place? And then where's my mummy? And all the questions emotionally that are churning inside you. And when you've got so many kids who are all crying and missing their parents, you never get your head above that parapet. Believe you me, it doesn't matter how long you're in the care system, how old you become, that's still there, because every time a child comes and goes, that same trigger is there. But what it did for me by turning the lens was it helped me. I didn't grow up feeling victimized by my circumstances. I had a sense of purpose because those children needed that love and that security. And like I said, in giving it to them, it fulfilled me too. So there were two really good points that I learned from one person who was a good role model to us. I've always said, you know, these role models keep young people safe. They keep them happy psychologically. They give them hope, and hope is everything when you grow up in care. For me, the other turning point was that I realized I was good at sport, and sport gave me the opportunity of earning my respect from my peers. Also, the teachers looked at me differently, other than a naughty kid who was just feisty, really, having to stand up on my feet far too young than I should have been, yeah, and calling out things, and being able to, suddenly realize I fitted in somewhere through sport gave me a sense of confidence and a new lease of life to and permission, I suppose, to go search for what it was that I wanted to do. Because we all need to have that.
Hey, quick question. Do you tend to think about food throughout the day? Have you ever finished a full meal and still felt like you could eat another plateful 20 minutes later? Now, I know this is controversial to say, but the truth is, it's actually not your fault if this is you. You're not greedy, you're not undisciplined, you're actually leptin resistant, and you're not alone. Leptin resistance is a consequence of living a modern lifestyle of excess blue light, excess stress, not enough sleep, and chemical food additives, among other things. It is the number one reason so many people, especially in their 40s and 50s, feel hungry 24/7 and can't shift the weight no matter what they try. Hi, I'm Elwyn Robinson from the Rejuvenate podcast, and I've just launched the leptin balance formula as part of the new Hormetics weight optimization system. It's the first system that identifies your exact hormonal block, whether it be leptin, insulin, cortisol, estrogen, low metabolism, or often some combination of those, and it gives you the precise formula to fix it. Now, the leptin balance formula contains African mango, Ceylon cinnamon, and alpha lipoic acid, all chosen because studies show they help restore leptin sensitivity and thereby reduce appetite naturally. Go to advancedhealthgenetics.com/leptin, order now, and you'll be invited to join our clinical study the moment you check out at no extra cost, so you can track exactly how well it works for you and help prove to the world that it does actually work. So go to advancedhealthgenetics.com/leptin now and use code REJUVENATE for 20% off. You deserve to feel satisfied again. That's advancedhealthgenetics.com/leptin and use code REJUVENATE for 20% off now.
No, absolutely. I mean, you make beautiful points there. I mean, because that is the part about, yes, this is a podcast about health and wellness and optimization. And the other part about that is that mental journey, that mental part that we have within that you spoke so well about, of having that little discussion. I say little, but it really wasn't. It might not have been long, but those points that Auntie Ray gave you or talked to you about, and how that helped you take yourself out of that victim role and gave you purpose.
But also remember, when being in the care system, you often find that some of the younger children in care are not all have got that strength to be able to ward off those predators that take advantage of our young people when they're in that disadvantaged situation. And I learned from a very young age, being a mum as a child, that protecting was the most important part of looking after these young people. And that gave me a sense of balance and proportion. And physically, I was a strong, tough little girl because I had to stand up and fight the bullies, not just for myself, but for others that lived in the care system. And equally, when we were at school, there were some young kids that lived at home in their families were bullied, and I couldn't abide bullies, so I would always stand up to them. So it made me a rough, tough little girl. But my mental strength came from, and resolve came from the fact that, that we were having to deal with so much more than children that lived and were protected with the love and guidance of their families. And so I've always said to young people, when you reach a certain age, the most important thing is to learn about the healing work. Because as an athlete and physically, when I was at school and I loved my sport, that gave me a sense of freedom. I was strong, I was fast, I was capable. But mentally, that's the other part of bringing what I call the wholesome together, the well-being. And those are really important things that you have to work on. It's not just, if you want to go and you want to be strong, go to the gym. If you want to have a healthy mindset, and mindset's everything, 90% of everything. So if you tell yourself you're not going to do it, chances are you won't. So mindset's really important. Talk to yourself kindly and make sure that you feed in the right narrative. And as far as well-being and mental health is concerned, that's again very, very important, because we often get triggered by stuff from our primary care years with future events that come at us. And if we haven't got the tools in the box because we haven't worked on our healing, we're not likely to be able to deal with that very well. Now, that can be said of just welcome to being a human being. We all suffer with trauma. There's no hierarchy where trauma is concerned. But there is the importance of us all working when we reach a certain age on the healing work. So I call it the 3 M's: mindset, mindfulness, and movement. And I do that daily. So sometimes we can wake up, and I constantly work on myself to this day, and I will do until the day I die. We're all going to at some stage get triggered, and I call up the triggers sometimes giving us angst, and the freeze, the flight mode that we get stuck in sometimes. We've got to know how we can circumnavigate that and get out of it and move forward. And so when we wake up in the morning, I usually find that movement's really a good starting point, because you may feel, oh, I don't really feel up to this. I don't want to go out and face the world or go out to the shops and talk to people, go shopping. Okay, start gently then. Move yourself around the house, around the garden. Start going around. Movement is really important, and getting in touch with nature as well, because you can start working on what I call mindfulness. That's the second M. The movement will bring good serotonin and it start feel good factor. The mindfulness starts kicking in and your mindset changes. All right. So then you can start to deal with life and you can start to deal with and feel stronger within yourself. So 3Ms are really, really important to me. And often I get asked, you're one of the lucky ones. You were fostered. And I think, yes, I was one of the lucky ones, but equally, you still have to work at that. Nothing just falls into place. And, with all the will in the world, if it's not going to happen, it won't happen. If it's not meant to be, you'll soon know about that. But if you don't work at something, chances are it won't be successful in the first place. So it is all about bringing your best self to what the cause is or what the challenge that you have, or in my case, to be embraced into the family. I needed to find the best I could in myself to make that work. I mean, being a troublesome kid and not applying to the rules, or trying to make it work on a level that the emotional nuance for everybody would never have taken off. So I was fortunate. Through sport, I met the love of the Whitbreads, and my mum Margaret, who's still with us, has been an absolute, the best thing that ever happened to me. And I always say, Gladys Knight and the Pips is our family song. You're the best thing that ever happened to us. And it's very true, that was another a role model in my life that came along through sport. And the higher power had it that this was to be, and I found the love of the Whitbreads.
No, that's beautiful. I'd love for you to share that story of how you met Mrs. Whitbread. And I just, yeah, I listened to it before, but I'd love for you to share that with our listeners as well, because, that also ties in with your love of sport. And without sport, you wouldn't have been in that situation at that time. So if you wouldn't mind, please share with us that story.
Well, as I said, sport was my saviour, and interestingly enough, I mean, obviously, a couple of things really. One, I learned at school, there was no like what was it? Inclusion. There was no inclusion, so you had to try and think off your own feet, and somehow, you know, embed yourself in stuff that you could excel in order to be accepted.
So it wasn't given to you, you had to find that on your own.
Yeah, I had to find that on my own. And so I was a bit of a tomboy. I used to love climbing all the trees. I like to scrump apples, and I like to climb chestnut trees and swing on the big rope swings in the park with the big kids. And kick the ball around in the playground with the boys. And then, it was told to me, oh, you'll never amount to anything because you're not working hard at school. And I thought, well, yeah, well, we'll see. And of course, when school sports time came on, I excelled. And that's when I realised this is something that I could be good at. Now, this particular match where we were playing netball, it was for the league cup, and I was really keen to motivate my team and get them up and running and organise practices, make sure they all turned up, and then work with the individuals. Some of them needed a kick in the rear, some of them needed a pat on the back. All this was a good learning curve for me. And I remember I said to Auntie Ray, she was the mum that I really wanted, and I said to Auntie Ray, Auntie, I said, if we win, we're going to win our first medal, and I want you to have it. And Auntie Ray told me something, and it stayed with me up until when I went into the Olympic Stadium. And she said to me, Fat, she said, you haven't won that medal yet, she said, so you just concentrate on what you're doing and make sure you enjoy what you're doing. And I remember when I went into the Olympic Stadium, that same sentence she said to me was ringing in my ears. Never did I ever put a medal around my neck before I'd won it, because there's always two events going on in the stadium, the event itself and also the psychological game. And if you start telling yourself, oh, I'm the favourite, and someone runs up and performs really well, and then you start thinking, oh, am I going to get that gold medal or silver? Maybe I won't get a medal at all. Then you're in the wrong mindset. So that was a good learning curve for me. And this match that we were playing, this netball match, it was going 11-11, 12-11, 12 all. And I was sort of making my voice quite loud on the pitch, encouraging my team. And the whistle went and the umpire said, young lady, any more noise and you'll be off. And I kind of looked and glared. And then I sort of got stuck into the game again. It was going 13-14, 14 all. Now, don't get me wrong. Today they would call us motivators. But back then we used to get called a pain in the ass. Yeah. And I was encouraging my team again. And the whistle went and the umpire said, young lady, I've told you once. If I've got to tell you once more, you'll be off. And as I turned and muttered under my voice, the team captain said, oh, Fats, don't. She's really strict. So I kept quiet. In the end, we won. Yay, Auntie Ray got her medal. And I said to my friend Alma, who lived in the children's home around the corner, Alma, I said, it's the end of the netball season, the start of the athletic season. Why don't we go to the local athletic club? I said, where we can sort of get involved with some track and field. So off we went. We walked about 5 miles. We probably had the bus money, but spent it on crisps or sweets or something more dire like Woodbine cigarettes, which kids used to do back then. And when we got to the track, Alma saw the sprinters and off she went. And I saw this really tall, blonde, good-looking fella like Brad Pitt. And I thought, well, he's nice. I'll go over there. So as I walked over, he was throwing what looked like a spear. And I thought, that looks good. And when I reached the runway, I saw there was a javelin on the ground. I went to pick it up and he said, you can't do that. And I said, in my feisty way, why not? As kids do, you know, you're always fighting for your own rights. So you become a bit more militant about stuff. And so he turned to the shot put coach who said, oh no, he said, young lady, you've got to come and sit over in the stand and wait for the javelin coach to come. So I'm sort of sitting there with my arms folded and toe tapping. Well, where's this javelin coach there? And this Minnie pulled up and Jack Grinney, the shot put coach, said, well, here comes the javelin coach now. And as I'm sitting there looking, this figure walks across the infield and then I do a double take. Oh no, it's that same woman on the netball court who threatened to send me off. I couldn't believe it. So yeah, when she came across to the stand, Jack went to introduce us, and she said, "Well, I know who you are." She said, "You're Fatima." She said, "Well, let me tell you, young lady, any of the cheek you showed on that netball court, there'll be no throwing any javelins here." So I kind of cupped my hands together in prayer, and I just said, "Oh, I promise you, I'll behave." So she got me right, putty in her palm of her hand. And then as a few weeks went by, she said, "Oh, you've got a bit of talent, young lady." She said, "Why don't you ask mum and dad to come?" And I sort of just nodded my head. And then she went to Jack. She said, "Jack," she said, "has Fatima got a hearing problem?" "No, why is that?" Jack said. "Well, every time I ask her about mum and dad, she just nods her head." "Oh," he said, "don't you know, she's one of the kids from the children's homes." And with that, Mrs. Whitbread the following week brought up a pair of boots and a javelin, and she said, "Look," she said, I've had a young lady retired." She said, "These boots are probably 2 sizes too big." She said, "But don't worry, stuff them with paper." She said, "And they're yours. And here's a javelin." So I kind of looked at her and I thought, are you for real? Like, you know, nobody's ever given us anything. Most of the stuff we have in the children's home was communal. And I said to Alma, my friend, it was a summer season. I said, let's go home on the bus today. And this probably wouldn't happen today. You know, I was standing at the bus stop, waiting there with my javelin, and the bus driver pulled up and the doors open and he's sort of going, no. And I pointed the javelin at him. I said, yes. And he just said, go on the back, he said, and behave. Now, I was quite keen to get back to the children's home because we had German students that came in the summer season, and most of the kids that could go home went home. And those of us who didn't have any homes to go to, we stayed there, obviously, in the children's home. So when I got back to the home, I said, Ingrid, come out in the garden. Let me show you how I throw this javelin when I'm up at the track. So Ingrid came outside, and I took a couple of throws to get it down the end of the garden. And as I pulled it out the vegetable patch, I discarded the potato off the end of the spear. And I sort of walked forward and I said, Ingrid, move out the way. I'm going to give it a really big throw this time. And of course I didn't. It went smash through the French windows. Ingrid standing there with her head in her hand saying, oh, you're going to be in trouble. And I sort of said, yeah, what's new? Never mind. I said, tell you what, stick it with sellotape. And of course, Ingrid said, they'll still know, which they did. And I got a month's ban when they got back, the house parents, which was quite a lot, really, because a month after school activities, no after school activities was my whole life. I loved my sport. And of course, when Auntie Ray wasn't on duty, I'd always stop on the way home and see Auntie Ray, have a cup of tea, and she'd sort of talk some common sense into me. And it was a really big blow not to be able to go out after school.
Oh, I bet, mentally and emotionally.
Yes, it was very tough to deal with emotionally and physically. I mean, it was just my way of expressing who I was through my sport, which gave me, as I said, so much confidence and respect from my peers. I've just felt like I fitted in for once in my life, but not having it, it was unbearable, really. I think more not being able to see Auntie Ray in the end because I mean she was like a mum to me. But so strangely enough, I got a message back after a couple of weeks from one of the girls in the opposite netball team saying Mrs. Whitbread thinks you've bunked off with the javelin and the boots and you're not interested anymore, and you've sold them and you've not bothering. And I thought, I can't let her think this. So I got up at 2 o'clock one morning and I went down to the front room in the children's home where they had a French bureau, and I pulled out in my ignorance an airmail envelope and I started writing, Dear Mrs. Whitbread, sorry I can't come to the track. Only I smashed the French windows, but one day I want to be the best javelin thrower in the world. And then I stuck it down and I wrote, Mrs. Whitbread, St. Chad's School. But that was all I knew. And on the way to school the next morning, I posted it through the post box, and then I waited, nothing. So I thought she couldn't have got it. And then all of a sudden, I heard the telephone ring one evening, and I pressed my ear to the glass window, and I was listening. And the house auntie was going, no, she's been naughty. She can't come. Uncle won't let her. Well, Mrs. Whitbread must have been quite persistent because within a few days I was back at the track throwing my javelin. And then she said, would you like to come for tea and meet the family? And I said, yeah, that would be lovely. And off I went and had tea with the family. And then when she was taking me back to the children's home, she said, well, she said, it is the summer. She said, how about you come and stay for a couple of weeks with us? And I looked at her, and like all kids, you're constantly being let down in care. And I kind of looked and I thought, well, I'm not sure. And then I said to her, well, I look after the kids like they need me in the home. And after her having a chat with Auntie Ray said, fact, she said, you've always wanted to know what it's like living with a family. You go and I'll look after the children. Don't you worry about that. And off I went, had a couple of weeks, and I was under no illusions like all children. You have your ups and downs, and all families. And so at the end of that 2 weeks, Greg, the 4-year-old, because they had two sons, Greg, who was 4, Kirk, who was 2, and Mr. Whitbread, and I got on very well with all of them, as you would expect as a child in care. I was used to looking after children, so I got on very well with Greg and Kirk. And Greg said to his mum, he said, Mum, he said, do we have to take Fatima back to the shop? And it was just so hilarious, the little 4-year-old saying that. And so on the way back to the children's home, Mrs. Whitbread said to me, well, she said, we've been thinking, how would you like to become a Whitbread? And I kind of I didn't dare believe it, because just in case it didn't happen and it would be another blow again. And when I got back to the children's home, the house aunties going, oh, so you're leaving us, are you? What are you going to tell Auntie Ray? And I kind of knew this. Auntie Ray was the mum I always wanted. And of course, for the first time I'd ever experienced a split loyalty for Auntie Ray and Mrs. Whitbread. And I knew Auntie Ray was coming in. I heard her clip-clopping up the back door, and no sooner she got in, the house auntie started, oh, so tell Auntie Ray then, tell Auntie Ray that you're leaving us. So Auntie Ray sort of looked at me, and she's true to Auntie Ray. She said, Fat, she said, are you going to become a Whitbread? She said, well, she said, I couldn't be happier for you. It's everything I can't give you. And she put her arms around me and gave me a big hug. And that gave me permission to let go of what I knew of the care system. What an amazing woman, both Margaret Whitbread and Auntie Ray. How lucky was I to have met two incredible people like that.
Absolutely. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes, you telling that story about their love, their care, and all of that. And it also, you shared some pieces in there that it also helps me, think about, well, I don't know what's actually going on in that person's life that I'm having that interaction with. And to have some compassion and have some thought and have some care. But it sounds like these two magnificent women have been just the stellar role models to support and love you along the way. And that also goes to show how important it is to have that connection with others.
Absolutely. The role models today, I mean, they can come in all shapes and sizes. You don't have to do extraordinary things. All you need to do is have empathy, and to just ask that child, is everything okay? Are you all right? Just show them, some love. These are the things that all children want: security, stability, continuity, the utmost, most important thing is that love and guidance. We all have it within us to be able to do something that can make a difference to a young person's life, a child's life.
No, absolutely. And God bless them. And fantastic.
Yeah, no,
It's pretty incredible. I want to, just a little side note. What was it about the javelin that made you want to walk down that way, or was it just the blonde Brad Pitt? And oh, there's a javelin on the floor.
yeah, I guess that was. I'm guessing it was that Brad Pitt. No, his name was David Ottley. He became, he was a British record holder. Became a very good thrower and inspired me. But he was a handsome young man, and I did like him a lot. But he had a girlfriend, sadly. For me, those
Oh, sorry. Go
sport.
ahead.
For me, sport was always going to be, my journey of learning, not just of self-growth, but traveled around the world, and met some incredible people. Michael Jackson, obviously was an incredible artist. Film stars, from past and present. Ella Fitzgerald was another one. Billy Connolly, some Shirley Bassey. I mean, my Auntie Ray always used to call me Shirley Bassey. So when I met Shirley Bassey, it was an amazing experience, and I felt quite empathic. And I always used to remember going around the children's home, going, "Hey, big spender!" And when I threw the javelin and broke the world record, I did what they called a Whitbread Wiggle, and that was probably remembering Shirley Bassey with Big Spender. I mean, it's funny how things evolve in the way they do. And I hope that I've been an inspiration for a lot of young people too. And maybe, just maybe, sharing my story of strength and resilience for anybody out there that's going through a tough time. This will give you hope, and make you realize that most things are possible. Just believe in yourself and give it a go, and believe in yourself as well, that you don't always have to achieve at the highest level. Just learn from the different experiences that you have to have that experience of empowerment. Is important to be able to translate it into your self-growth as a person. Evolve. How do you evolve?
Do you ever get to mid or late afternoon, and even though you've only had lunch maybe 1, 2, 3 hours ago, you just get this overwhelming craving for something sweet? Well, if that's you, it's not weakness, it's not lack of discipline, it's actually likely to be an early sign of insulin resistance. Hi, I'm Elton Robinson from the Rejuvenate podcast. I've just released the insulin balance formula, which is part of the Hormetics weight optimization system. The insulin balance formula contains precisely chosen quantities of berberine, fenugreek, zinc, and folate, all chosen because studies show that these quantities of these precise ingredients help your cells to listen to insulin again, stopping these blood sugar crashes and finally helping your body burn fat instead of storing it. To try it, go to advancedhealthgenetics.com/insulin, and as soon as you order, you'll be invited to join our clinical study at no extra cost, so you can track exactly how much better you feel and help us show that the formula actually works. Plus, you can get 20% off now by using the code REJUVENATE. End the blood sugar roller coaster, lose that belly fat. Go to advancedhealthgenetics.com/insulin and use code REJUVENATE for 20% off now.
I was going to say, how would you say that you've done that, or how would you help somebody learn how to do that? Because a lot of times people have that mindset like, oh, it's not worth it, I just can't do it. They let those other, that inner voice take over. And
Yes.
so how do you get into that space of empowerment and move beyond that?
Well, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I listen to people like Mel Robbins. I mean, she's fantastic. And just generally, Dr. Ragan Chasterjee, he has some really great people on his podcast, and so does Mel. And just listening to how they've overcome things is inspiring, and it motivates you to think that if they can achieve it, why couldn't I? And I dare you to listen to these podcasts, and I call that my homework. That's part of my healing, that I use my homework to help me get through my daily life. And it helps me to articulate myself better, because I'm really self-taught. At school, I didn't have the best. When I had my son Ryan, I did a huge amount of learning with Ryan by teaching him. So, but the podcasts and audio books that I listen to are usually very inspiring. They help me greatly. And the other thing I like doing is my artwork. This is part of my homework as well. So I do artwork. So I do stuff like this. And I spend my time, and this is one I've just done now. This is one I've just done. And again, I find that that's creative. You're using your mind to use color. You're getting what I call a free flow state of mind.
Oh, Fatima, those are
And
gorgeous.
yeah. And what that does is it allows me to get into my creative mind. So there's another couple. This one.
Wow. Oh my gosh, those are beautiful.
Yeah, they're beautiful. And there's another one here. I mean, so you're just looking at, you're using your mind to think, right, colors. And then when you start having that free flow state of mind, then you start thinking about stuff and putting it in its correct context. or coming up with ideas. And that's really what I think is the basis of all success, really, is having that space and time to be yourself and learn more about what it is that you're capable of, or your limitations. There's nothing wrong with having limitations. We've all got them. Where it goes wrong is we won't accept sometimes that others can be better than you at things. So what? That's good.
I like that.
We'll celebrate them and understand that you can't be the best at everything. And when you realize that, you then take away from that, what have I learned about this? How's this make me a better person? And then you're a winner.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. Because I was going to ask, I mean, achieving the, you know, as much as you did in sport and standing on that podium and having that medal around your neck, that's sometimes they say after achieving a goal like that, people can go into depression because what's next? What comes next? Especially if you don't get another one, or there's somebody else that's better that comes along. I mean, that's massive mental pressure, not only to yourself, to your ego, to everything. So how did you, from that moment beyond, one, how was it standing up on that podium? And then two, how did you prepare yourself, or what did you do post that win?
Well, I mean, I've always been somebody who's not really materialistic. And when you realize it's intrinsic, not extrinsic, that brings you happiness, and when you say make and create your own happiness, it's only through a byproduct of experience do you realize that's what true happiness is through learning. And when you understand people don't keep winning all the time, and you can be a winner without being a winner, right? So when you can use your mind, which is a powerful tool, to understand you don't need to keep winning, for me it took me 12 years before I stood on the podium, my first win. That's 12 years of apprenticeship, working towards something. And during that period of time, I created an understanding for who I was, what I was, learning and working with other people, and learning about them and what made them tick and why were they so good at what they did. And that's the fascination of being evolving in a world that, if you're not careful, we can, through societal's demands or expectations, try to be somebody that we're not, instead of remaining who you are and creating your own platform of success, or not so much success in when I say that at the top echelon, but just by winning at life, understanding it. Stop chasing the rainbow. Stop trying to think that you have to do it because society expects it. Stop having and living on the expectation of others. Learn to be understanding of yourself and kind to yourself. Don't keep putting expectation on top of other people's expectations. And when you realize you're being true to who you are and not being somebody that others expect you of you, then you may well find yourself at peace and content, because that's what life is. Finding, and that success of life for me is finding the peace, being at peace and content with who I am and where I am. Not the car I'm driving, not the holiday I'm having, not the gold medal that I've got. My medals are in a plastic bag somewhere, in a tennis racket bag, which I sling on my shoulder when I go off to an event to talk to people, and put it out and display it for anyone who wants to put it around there and have their medal picture taken with it. It's not about the medals for me. It was about the journey of learning. It was about that middle bit of self growth and being able to inspire hope in others and be able to share with them the strength and resilience, the power of that, of what you can achieve through coming from humble beginnings to the very top of the podium, and still coming round now at this age, life begins at 60 plus, and still sharing that knowledge for a good cause, for a good cause. You know, you don't ever stop learning. You can always inspire and encourage people at any age to succeed in whatever it is they want to do. I'm not materialistic.
No, that makes so much sense, and that is beautiful what you said. It's really about I can't put to how
It's
you
a
said it.
connection to life.
Yes,
Yes, connection to life, and the experiences that we all have in our lives, and seeing where can I take. First of all, you got to show up for yourself. Secondly, you got to learn that life will deal you some harsh times. That's just the way life is. That's your learning. Each of us are one another's learning. You'll learn something from me, and I'll learn something from you. And when you realize that your purpose in life is your sole purpose in life is to look after your soul and evolve to a level where you feel happy and content where you are.
yeah, absolutely. Being at peace and content with who you are. For somebody that's sitting out there right now that's listening to this, that isn't feeling that way, doesn't know where to start, is feeling stuck, is feeling discouraged, what would you want them to hear from you that would really, really land within them?
What I'd like to say to them is you can start at any point of your life to change it. Just because you didn't do it from a young age doesn't mean to say you can't do it in the middle part of your life or the end part of your life. Things that you may not have experienced at the start of your life, you can experience at the end part of your life. You know, you're going to find somewhere along that spectrum. We're all on a different level. Okay. We're all God's mad creatures. I've said this before, you know, and but don't worry about what other people are doing. You've got to start saying to yourself, let me make a few changes, because if you make a few changes, then the parameters will move, the shift, and then once those shift, then you have we'll find out how best, what suits you, or what you're capable of. Or you might meet new people if you decide to go to the shops early rather than late, or vice versa. Or you go to the park instead of to, you know, wherever it is that you go to take your walk. The whole point that I'm making is just make a couple of changes in your routines. Even sometimes if in the springtime or the summer, instead of having my cup of tea where I usually sit, I'll go somewhere else around the house, or I sit in the garden, and I see a different perspective and different thoughts processes come then. And then, you know, there you go. You're starting already to find something that will resonate with you or work for you. You know, it's all about making the little things that make the difference, and the small things that make change in your life. Don't be afraid to do them, because fear holds us back. Fear is the biggest thing that holds us back, and then we don't really experience and have the opportunity of whether making decisions, whether this is the right thing for me or not, or would I like this or not, because you're fearful of what other people may think of you or ridiculing you, or you just feel that you just shouldn't really be doing it. Or no, just do it. Do it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. At least you've experienced something by doing it. You take away something from that
Yeah, you have the
experience.
exactly. It's that courage. Just because sometimes people, like you brought up fear. Some people are too fearful to take that step. Oh, what are people going to think about me? Oh, what if I don't do it well? Or what if I look silly doing it? Oh, I don't even want to try.
We're all in that same boat, because I remember when I became world champion, and then I went down to my local tennis club, and everybody expected me, because I was world champion, to be a world champion tennis player. And then I suddenly thought, I'm not playing tennis. Why aren't you playing tennis? You wanted to come down here to play tennis. Why are you sitting watching and not playing? It's because I feared that somebody expected me to be a world champion tennis player, and here was me probably only doing a little. But I wasn't too bad a player. What I'm saying is that it happens to all of us, and I think the problem is we get stuck in that fight flight mode and freeze, when we really should be pushing forward and thinking and breaking down the barriers to seeing, to opening up to new things.
Well said, opening up to new things. Because as well as we get older, I think change can be daunting, and therefore we're not putting ourselves out there. And also too, part of this podcast is that optimization, is aging or maturing and not aging, in that way. And by doing things that are slightly out of the comfort zone, they help keep us young. They help keep us agile and our minds fresh, because that's the other part about this. It's not, so many times as I see people in their late 70s, 80s, the mind is fresh, but the body isn't working, or the body's working, but the mind isn't there. So what do you think are the key components to making sure that the body and the mind mature at a beautiful, optimal place?
So making changes is firstly showing up, recognizing that you need to make that change. When you know you have to make change, don't procrastinate. Just get on with doing it. The longer you think about it, the less likely it's going to happen. So sit down, write yourself a little list of do's and don'ts, or whatever it is you want to do. Have a little bucket list of stuff and go out and do it, for goodness sake. When in between one thing that you try to the next, that spurt of growth of learning and experience will change your perspective on things, and it will make you much happier within your soul. And as you get older, don't think because you're getting older that's the time when really you need to be going out and pushing further afield, because we can grow old very quickly if we allow ourselves, by just sitting in an armchair, sitting and watching and being an armchair critic on Strictly Come Dancing, or I'm a Celeb, which we all love. Why not be on that program yourself? Go to your local community hall and start dancing with your partner, or just go on your own. If you're on your own, I'll go on all my adventures on my own, and you meet like-minded people. And when you take on a challenge like that, you think, why didn't I do this before? And that's really what I call the beauty of life, at its best, and meeting people and engaging with others, and learning new things. It keeps you, on life's cutting edge, where you're always going to be able to say, actually, I'm enjoying my life, rather than sitting down eating a bag of crisps, watching the telly, and being critical of everything.
I think we have very, very good point. I think the one thing that definitely comes as I'm speaking with you, and as I've heard you being interviewed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you love your life. As you said, there's going to be those ups and downs, but every time I hear you speak, Fatima, you're
Yeah.
just very
It's
inspiring.
challenge. Well, I'm a person that likes challenges. If somebody said to me when I was a child, because I was always hearing negativity, with some people saying, "No, you'll never amount to anything, or you won't be able to do that," and I'll say, "I will. I'll show you I can." And that, you know it's stayed with me. I just love anybody that says anything. I'll say, "I'll show you," and I'll make sure I do it. But personally, I think that the greatest thing in life is to be able to live it. You've been given this; it's gone in a blink of an eye. So why wouldn't you live it to the full, and do as much as you can, learn as and absorb as much as you can in life, whether it be listening to your podcasts, doing your artwork, walking the dog, set yourself a challenge every night, go round the block, ask one of your neighbours to go with you, or meet a friend round the block, or go for, whatever it is that you want to do. Just change your routine, up the ante, and make sure, when you do that, you look at it and the way that Where have I, improved from? What can I take from this? And you might say, actually, this is not working for me. Then you try something else. Don't stay stuck in something where you don't need to. Try something else.
You, I know we're coming up to time. So just, you've mentioned earlier, so the takeaways here, the three M's, that was movement, mindset,
Mindset and
and
mindfulness.
mindfulness. So,
And I've got one more for you as well. So when people look at me and they say to me, well, how can you do that? And I say, well, the brilliance behind my mantra has always been love, kindness, and strength is what my world is complete with. But the question is not who's going to let me, but who's going to stop me. And only you can stop you, right? So what are you waiting for?
no, it's true. So many of us think, they need to ask permission to go off and do those things. But just like you said, and what you've experienced through your life is, I'll show you, or who's going to stop me? This is me, and I'm doing it.
Yeah. And if you've got a husband at home, shake him up and say, right, come on then, you come round the block with me. Or you come dancing. Let's try something new, like to go flamenco dancing or something that's going to spice up your life again. Do something together. Or just factor in, if you're going to take on a challenge, maybe for Fatima's UK campaign, run a marathon, right? You could say, look, you've got to factor time into your diary to do the training, the preparation work. So you've got to try to understand you need to make slight changes. You need factor time, time to factor that into your, routine in the day. Or if you're working in the day at night time, you might say, right, well, tonight we're going to have whatever it is to eat because I need to have this extra hour to go out for a run or whatever it is that you do. There's all about preparation, and having a program in place. Don't try and set the world alight all in one go. Just little changes here and there. Maybe take one challenge up for the year, see how it goes. Try and raise funds for Fatima's campaign or somebody a good cause within your community. And, that in itself, will unlock a lot of happiness for you, I'm a great believer in changing things up and chopping things about. Don't get set in your ways because, life's there to live and there's a whole lot of living out there.
Beautiful words. Oh, Fatima, I could talk to you for hours. This has been amazing. And I am so grateful to you for having the time to join me and for sharing your story with our listeners on this podcast. And I just want to say thank you. You have inspired me, and I am, changed for the better. So thank you.
And God bless you all. And may you all have lots of happiness and success for whatever it is you choose to do. So thank you for having me on today. I really appreciate it and I've enjoyed it.
Beautiful, Fatima. And just one more time, if anybody is interested, where can they go to maybe sign up for a campaign or buy the Christmas cards or support your charity?
So Fatima's UK campaign, if you go on my website, you will find we have a Just Giving page there if you want to help us make a change for these young people. If you want to buy my Bright Shining Star book, you can get that on Amazon or order it from Waterstones. If you want to get one of our calendars or Christmas cards, then obviously this will be shared on my LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads. You'll see that I am posting all the time, and I've got the link there as well. Rianne Wright, who is the illustrator, Rianne Rhian, and Wright Wright. She is the illustrator who helped me put all the illustrations together for My Bright Shiny Star. She also has an Instagram page. You'll find her there as well. You'll find us. You'll find where to come.
So you heard it here, lovely listeners. Go get your cards, go to Fatima's website, and make a difference in some young children's lives today. As always, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed that, I recommend watching our latest episode, which you can do by clicking above. And make sure to subscribe, like the video, comment, and share with anyone who you think might appreciate it. Thank you.